Hey guys, Ange here, and here's my recap of UFC 284, Makhachev versus Volkanovski for the lightweight belt. Wow, what an event. Amazing performance by Alexander Volkanovski. Despite not getting the win, Makhachev, retains the lightweight belt. The fight goes to a decision, and Islam Makhachev wins the unanimous decision. Me personally, I had the fight 3-2 for Islam. I felt like Volkanovski came on later in the fight and kind of gave away the first few rounds to Islam while he was testing the waters a bit. Disappointing in a sense for Volkanovski, because I feel like if he had a slightly better, not a better game plan, but if he had been a little busier and just a tiny bit more confident, I feel like he could have got the job done, and he almost got the job done in the final round. He really bashed the shit out of Islam in the last round, but Islam was smart enough to wrestle and hold on. And amazing fight by both men. I have a lot of respect for both of them. So I'm not really used to doing a recap, let alone any of this stuff, but I'll do my best. I've got a few notes here. The fight was incredible. I recommend watching it if you haven't already. Volkanovski, he certainly did what he said he was going to do. He stood up to Islam in all those areas. He withstood all those submission attempts. He wrestled him and he survived, and then he actually started out wrestling him when Islam was a little bit worn out later. On the flip side, Islam was having a lot of success in the striking, and he actually dropped Volkanovski one or two times, and he was busier in the striking, which was a little bit surprising. I felt like Volkanovski could have. He just didn't seem to be interested in hanging out in those exchanges for long. And I guess that's because he didn't want to get taken down, and he was very conditioned to wrestle and be defensively wrestling. And he ended up doing some really great things. But again, I feel like he just took his time before he really figured out Islam. And I don't blame him, because we've never seen anyone do what Volkanovski did to Islam. We've never seen anyone stand with him and then actually take over. Volkanovski, he was taking over in the end, but it's a 5-round fight. The way he was fighting, it was if he was going to fight 10 rounds, and if the fight had kept going, he would have put Islam out. But that's not the competition, unfortunately, for Volkanovski. I'm still really proud of what he did. He shouldn't be disappointed. It is a little bit disappointing for us Australian Anzac fans, people, I should say. But he did such a great job, and so did Islam. He really proved that he can hang on through adversity, and he did all the right things. He didn't really make any mistakes with the game plan or anything. Let's just have a look at my notes. Islam made his match with Volkanovski. They're definitely two of the best fighters in the world. I wonder, also, Islam, because he had so much success, he threw a lot of straight punches, knees, and he had really good success. I wonder if it was a southpaw stance that helped him have that success. Excuse the tea drinking. I need a little bit of caffeine. I just gave up coffee, so this is the next best thing. Islam looked great on the feet. I don't know how to explain it. I haven't watched the fight back, but Volkanovski just didn't seem to be interested to capitalize on those exchanges, or even I just think he was wired for wrestling and for the striking and ground and pound to be based around his wrestling game. And they both admitted they underestimated each other in the striking and wrestling, and they ended up being better in those realms. So it's very interesting. yeah, Volkanovski, he withstood those submission attempts. He seemed to be a bit stronger. He was actually stronger than Islam. He said that too. He was strong enough to not get submitted, which I found really surprising. Him actually Islam. I don't know if it's just me or whether Volkanovski was looking bigger, but Islam looks a bit leaner to me. Yeah, a little bit leaner. So I don't know whether he had a bad weight cut. Because I feel like maybe he's had a bit more energy before, but maybe he was overwhelmed with how well Volkanovski was performing. But regardless, yeah, he still won the rounds. It was really just the execution of the game plan for Islam that won this fight. Yeah, I would say Volkanovski made Islam look a little bit more human in this fight. I'm not taking away from Islam, of course, because he fought like a perfect fight for him. But we've never seen that before, and Volkanovski, like I said, he made a point that he was gonna shock everyone, and I think he did that. But I also feel like because I feel like that was his main focus. His main focus was to prove that he can best Islam or be Islam's equal in fighting, and he did prove that. He proved that he could hang with him. He proved that he could take him down even. He proved that he could get back up. He did all that. He proved everything right. Like, he proved himself right. He said he was going to do this. But I also noticed this week that he said, I will do all that stuff, which he did. He said, I will try to be double champ. And for me, I'm really weird with this manifestation thing of saying, oh, I'll try to do it, try to be double champ. For me, like, you know, the wise saying, there is no try from Star Wars Yoda. There is a do or do not. And he applied that way of thinking to what he was going to do, but not to the result. I mean, results you can't really control anyway, but I didn't like him saying, I'm going to try. I feel like Volkanovski could have, but there was just so much to achieve in this fight that he really did achieve what he was meant to. So he has a lot to be proud of. And he did beat up Islam in the last round. Like, Islam was lucky to survive that. Volkanovski, I guess, was a bit lucky too. Like, he did get rocked early in the fight a couple of times. So did Islam. He got dropped in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. And about that, I noticed in this fight that Volkanovski had a tiny bit of an ego that helped him in some situations. He wanted to break Islam's will, and I think he had a little bit of success there, but I feel on the other side of that, his ego got the better of him in some circumstances. When he dropped Islam the first time, he was like, oh, where he could have capitalized, he could have even, finished him there. But I guess that was early in the fight, and he didn't want to take too many risks because he didn't know whether Islam was holding back a bit. But I think the ego might have got in the way a bit, because Volkanovski is really technical, and I think when he's more focused on the technical stuff, he's better. So I don't know if I'm right or wrong about that observation, but I just think that he used his ego to help him in some respects, but in order to win the fight, that just wasn't his focus. So I guess if that's not your focus, you can't be upset with the result. I did have a little look at some of the news headlines coming out. I haven't looked at anything else or listened to anything else. Some people are saying it's a robbery. I totally disagree with that. Like I said, I scored the fight 3-2 for Islam because I think Islam won the first 2 rounds. I think Volkanovski might have won the third and definitely the last, but I definitely had Islam winning 3. So I think that sometimes with MMA, when you see someone have such a really good like last 2 rounds, you feel like they win the fight. The same thing happened with Ankalaev and Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title last year. Everyone thought Ankalaev won. Well, a lot of people did, just because he absolutely smashed Blachowicz in the first 2 rounds. But Blachowicz arguably won the first 3 rounds. Volkanovski could have won the last 3 rounds, but I feel like the 4th round could have gone to either. But I have to rewatch it. I didn't want to rewatch it just because I don't want to have too much to think about. I just want to give you my initial reaction. But I would give it to Islam. He hit Volkanovski with more shots. I think he outstruck him with the significant strikes. He was busier. Volkanovski kind of spent the first bit of the fight trying to figure out Islam, proving that he can wrestle with him, roll with him, stand with him. And then he started to take over, but it was just a little bit too late. But he certainly shocked a lot of people, including myself. I was really, I don't know, kind of scared for him because Islam, we just haven't seen him go through much adversity, but at the same time, wow, really impressed me. So yeah, well done to both men. What else have I written here? Oh yeah, and I think another factor is that, oh my god, what am I doing? No, don't do that. Islam, he looked like the fresher, no, Islam looked beat up after that fight. And Volkanovski, he looked like the fresher fighter somehow. He had a cut, but Islam looked really beat up. So I think that made some people believe that maybe they were robbed Volkanovski was robbed of a decision, but yeah, the stats tell you otherwise, I would argue. And what else have I written here? Ego. Yeah, I also wanted to note the fighter always reverts to what they've been drilling most in training, and so I think for this fight, Volkanovski was so focused on the wrestling that that's where he kind of did his best work, where he kind of maybe neglected some of the striking, and vice versa, but that kind of ended up benefiting Islam more than it did. Well, no, not really, but I think Islam just did more with it, more offensive. He was just a bit more offensive and more busy. My takeaways from this fight is that it is good to challenge yourself. Volkanovski's like, don't be afraid of the result. Just challenge yourself, and it does better yourself, and it's helped me particularly. So thank you for that, Volkanovski, and don't be upset. And yeah, he did smack the smirk off Islam's face. He beat the shit out of him. He made him human. They both met their match. It was a very close fight. An incredible performance. I think that will go down in history. And I think Islam rightfully retained the belt. I also feel a little bit disappointed for Volkanovski, but maybe he'll get another shot. I don't know if he will against Islam, because I don't know how long Islam's going to hang around, and now Volkanovski's 34. I don't know. I'll just get on to some of the other fights. Whoopsie. I just took some snapshots. Oh yeah, really quickly. So the next fight, the co-main event, was Rodriguez versus Emmet for the interim featherweight title. So this was very one-sided. Emmet had some success, but ultimately it was just not enough against Rodriguez, who just had way too many tools, too many weapons, too many looks, too many tricks for Emmet, who looked a little bit slow, a little bit one-dimensional. I really feel for him because I like him a lot. He's definitely earned his way here. I was a little bit tough on Rodriguez in my breakdown because I didn't feel like he had the merit to be there, but he proved that he did belong there, and he proved that he is, you know, rightfully so, the interim featherweight champion now. Yeah, he hurt Emmet early on with the body kick or the spinning back kick, whatever it was. He hurt him like right to the liver area. Emmet looked a bit slow, and even when he was bolting for Rodriguez, he just couldn't get him. He got a takedown, I think, or something like that. Just couldn't keep up with him. Rodriguez looked great. Yeah, I think Emmet was pacing the fight to be like a 5-round fight, but it was just too slow, and he just didn't have anything to match Yair with, Yair Rodriguez. Yeah, Yair had too many tricks up his sleeve, so yeah, I feel really bad for Emmet. He's been so good all week with the fans, and I mean, not that Rodriguez hasn't, but he's got nothing to be ashamed of. This sport is just so heartbreaking sometimes for some of the fighters, which is why I respect them so much, because they can lose everything, or they can dedicate their whole lives and not quite make it, but at least they've done it. It's kind of like what Volkanovski said, at least they've taken those chances, and I think that's the most important thing, because the worst thing is never knowing how far you could go. So props to both men there. Alright, let's have a little look at the other fights. Whoops, we're going backwards now. Oh yeah, Jack Della. Wow. This guy, I don't know what he's made out of personally. He's got so much potential. He just keeps performing so well, you know, climbing up the ranks. I wonder how far he can go. So both men, I noticed, they weighed in late on the scales. I don't know whether that means that they had bad weight cuts or whether they were just taking their time, but they both kind of weighed in like maybe an hour or so into the weigh-ins, and they weighed in and then they weighed in like one after the other. So that was kind of interesting. During this fight, Randy Brown established his distance, and he was picking Della apart from the outside a bit, and for a second there I thought, oh shit, this Della's gonna, you know, I don't know, I think Randy's fighting really well, and I don't know what Della's gonna do, but then all of a sudden he just presses Randy against the cage, gets him, face plants him, and then submits him, which was, yeah, crazy, amazing, flawless performance. Oh yeah, I didn't mention last fight that Rodriguez, he triangled Emmet. I keep thinking he TK'd him, but that's not true. And Jack Della submits Randy Brown, which was completely unexpected. Della just has excellent composure, game execution. He's got amazing skills. He just seems so good, and he's got fight IQ. I think he needs to face someone in the top 15, top 10. Yeah, he called out Vicente Luque. I think he beats Vicente Luque too easily, just because Vicente's had a bit of a bad run recently, which is a shame because Vicente Luque never got his shot at the belt. Also, we've got Justin Tafa knocked out Parker Porter in the first minute. He just placed a lovely counter at 1-2 against Parker Porter, and he looks like he's been working on his craft, so that was nice to see him have that victory after a little bit of bad luck in his career. Crute and Menifield. Oh, I have a bit to say about this actually. So Jimmy Crute, Menifield. Jimmy did not look good in this fight, especially to start with. I was expecting him to have worked on his striking defense. I'm really surprised. He was lucky to make it out of the first round. He got hit a lot. He was almost out. He was getting outstruck and kind of out-wrestled by Menifield. Jimmy's striking defense was non-existent. I just didn't get it because I remember watching Jimmy, and he just seemed to be really slick in the striking. Maybe it was just the competition he was facing, or maybe it's the layoff he's had. He said he had a really tough year last year, and I know what that's like, so I can't be too critical. Obviously, yeah, and he could knock me out if he wanted. I'm sure he has better striking defense than me. Yeah, but Jimmy, I just don't understand. Anthony Smith kind of exposed that Jimmy wasn't seeing, he doesn't see the shots coming in, or I think he's just can't see them, like the straight punches, the jab, and since then it's just been really exposed. Jamal Hill made quick work of Jimmy, and then I don't know. Maybe he's never had it, but he's still young. He needs to work on it. Yeah, because if he wants to get back and up the ranks again, he's gonna need it, because he can't keep getting punched like that, not at this level. So I hope, Jimmy, you figure it out. Spend like an hour every day just working on that, because he's really talented. He's got great jiu-jitsu. But back to the fight. Yeah, so Jimmy just survived the first round, and Menifield started to gas out, and then there was a fence grab that Menifield had when Jimmy started coming back to the fight, and then he got docked a point, so the fight results in a draw, and they're both completely gassed at the end of the fight, and Jimmy is like winning the last round. They both slowed down a lot after that. I also noticed that in the first round, I think Menifield gave Jimmy a really nasty neck crank, and I think that really hurt him. I think he seemed not to be there at all. I think I hope he didn't hurt his neck, because he seemed really out of it after that. So I hope he's okay. But props to Jimmy. He came back in that fight. And he tried to, I think he had Menifield in a really bad positions, but Menifield had enough wrestling to counter the jiu-jitsu of Jimmy. So it was an interesting fight, but if it wasn't for that point deduction, Menifield would have won. But I feel like it was going to be his fight anyway. Jimmy got saved by the bell, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so that's the main card. How are we going for time? Oh, it doesn't say. Okay. Hope I've got time left. Thanks for listening and giving me a go at this. Thanks for coming over to this new channel, if I've made it, because I don't think I'll put it on my old channel. Oh yeah, so that's Tafa. That's the draw. I do have more notes here. I can touch on the prelims. I didn't actually type them out. Just turn that off for now. Oops. That's very unprofessional, isn't it? But it matters. So that's the main. These are my notes. That's the main event. Oh, yeah, in the prelims, Jamie Malaki, yeah, he absolutely gave Francisco Prado a masterclass. He kept his distance. He fought a smart fight, and Prado just didn't know what to do. Inexperience. So Jamie takes the O from Prado. Great fight by Jamie. He did really great. He fought the way he should have. I think people underestimate Jamie just because of the way he looks. He's lanky and he's, I don't know. Because he can fight pretty weird, but he's learned how to control it, like I said in my breakdown. So good work, Jamie. He fought well. I can see why it wasn't on the main card now, just because Francisco Prado isn't really main card quality. He's just, a newbie. He's not that he's bad or anything, but Jamie's main card. We had Shannon Ross was defeated by Clay Jensen Rodriguez. I feel bad for Shannon Ross. Like I said in the breakdown, he didn't win his fight on the Contender Series, but he still got a contract. But in this fight, he never got to get going, and I hate it when I watch a fighter from Australia who gets their break and they just don't have any answer for it, and that was not upsetting, but it just sucks for him because I know how hard people work. But his opponent Clayton Rodriguez was just too quick, too much. He had so many spinning things and so many looks, and Shannon Ross just seemed a bit slower and didn't seem to get going, but I hope he gets another shot in the UFC. Even though I wanted to see him fight Sean Etchell, but if anyone deserves a shot, it's Sean Etchell. We had Josh Kalibau, who is another Australian fighter, who I didn't really actually know anything about. I don't know where he's been fighting, but he had a come from behind victory, if I recall. What does this say? I can't read my writing. He compromised. Yeah, took his shot. Amazing. Oh, okay. He was badly compromised, but I think he was losing the fight by the Armenian Melish Bagdasarian. Bagdasarian was winning the fight, and it looked like it was going to go his way, but then Josh just completely turns it around and lands these great shots and wins. It was a really... Sorry, I haven't really written my notes are so rough I'm just touching on these fights. Tyson Pedro versus Modestas Bukauskas. Now, this was an interesting fight. I thought Modestas Bukauskas was a middleweight. I watched him fight because he was in the UFC, and then he hurt his knee, and then he went back to Cage Warriors and he won the belt there. I thought he was at middleweight, but he took this fight on 1 week's notice, so maybe he's just a small light heavy. But he looked good. He looked quick. He was not threatened by Tyson Pedro. They both were a little bit unconditioned, understandably, for Modestas Bukauskas, but Tyson Pedro, he didn't seem to be there. I think there was something wrong with him, whether maybe he had a bad weight cut. He seemed to gas out very quickly after he did some really cool sort of Japanese jiu-jitsu stuff on the ground, and then after that he was done in the first round, so I hope he's alright. But yeah, Modestas Bukauskas, I think, won the decision, rightfully so. Oh my god. So the early prelims, oh yeah, I'll start with the first fight of the night, which was a really effed up decision. The wrong guy won. Like, this was a robbery, not the main event. This was a robbery. So we had Turkugov versus Brenner. So Brenner ended up winning, but Turkugov, I thought, won 2-1 rounds. 2 rounds to 1, yeah. Turkugov did miss weight, but he performed a lot better. He just dominated, I thought, a little bit, and Brenner gassed out a bit. So I don't know how he got that. I just don't know how he won that fight. I have to rewatch it, but I remember the commentators were just like, what the hell, just like actually angry at that decision, and I was a little bit worried that they would keep making bad decisions throughout the night, but they didn't, so I don't know what the story is there. And I was kind of actually hoping that, because I'm an Aussie girl, I was kind of hoping that the judges will fuck up the score for Islam and Volkanovski, but they didn't, they got it right. So I was kind of wondering, maybe it'll be split, or, but yeah, I'm glad they scored it right. Oh, Jack Jenkins versus Don Shanis. So that was... How did he win that? Didn't he knock him out? Yeah, Jack Jenkins performed well. I could bring it up. He got the win. He could command... Oh, that went to the decision, actually. Yeah, he commanded the energy when he needed it, and that was really good, because he overwhelmed his opponent. I feel like Shanis was probably a stronger wrestler and grappler, but those energy boosts of Jack Jenkins were just too much for him. Loma Lukbumi versus Reed. Wow, Loma performed amazingly. She submitted Elise Reed. So that's pretty crazy for a Muay Thai fighter who seems to be kind of green in MMA, but she performed amazingly. She looked like a mixed martial artist out there. And she's also a smaller fighter. She's really an atomweight fighter, which I wish they had the atomweight division in the UFC. Hopefully one day. I feel like if I was a fighter, I would be atomweight, because I'm so, my bones are so small. But maybe I'm strong weight. But I don't know. People just think about these things, I guess. Yeah, she busted up Elise Reed, and just bested Reed in her game. I think watching a few breakdown videos, a lot of people had Loma Lukbumi winning this fight anyway, but they probably didn't guess it was going to be a sub. And lastly, in the early prelims, there's Shane Young versus Blake Builder. I feel for Shane Young, because he didn't get the win. He lost, it was a decision, that's right. Blake Builder wins the decision. I think Shane Young was just frustrated with the movement of Blake Builder. Blake Builder is like a ex-Golden Gloves champion, for whatever that's worth. So he had really good foot movement, good boxing. Too much for him. He looked a bit quicker, a bit slicker, and yeah. He fought well. It was Blake Builder's UFC debut as well. Yeah, wow, so that's about it for my breakdown. Thanks for giving me a go. I also watched Eternal MMA the night before, and Astro Boy put on a beautiful, beautiful performance. He choked out his opponent in a few minutes. The Japanese boy, it looked like the Japanese, let me just bring that up, because I don't want to. Oh no, I can't. Sorry guys, I need to get my setup in order. Yeah, the Japanese boy, he was really quick and slick, and it looked like he was going to be too quick for Astro Boy, but Astro Boy did it, got it done. So look out for Astro Boy. I can't even recall his real name, which is terrible of me, but he is an amazing flyweight. He's also beaten Shannon Ross, who I mentioned earlier. He's definitely someone to watch out for in the flyweight division in the UFC or anywhere. Like, he's really good, really, really good, and he's got the best name for a flyweight in the world. Like, Astro Boy, come on, that's so cool. Yeah, so final thoughts. An excellent card, a really great card for an Australian MMA fan like me. Some people were complaining there wasn't enough big stars in it. I thought it was amazing. I really enjoy watching the up-and-coming talent, probably more than anything, because I like seeing people's journey. Yeah, and I think Alex made history with the fight against Islam. They both made history, and they both, deserve respect. Yeah, I'm a tiny bit disappointed for Volkanovski, because he's shown that he has the potential to beat Islam. But maybe there'll be another chance, maybe not. But the biggest takeaway is that he did smack the smirk off Islam's face, and I think we're all going to remember that fight. And Islam proved that he can withstand adversity, and is rightfully the lightweight champion. Actually, on that note, I do want to mention, I'd like to see Beneil Dariush get his shot next. He's just had to go through hell and back just to get any attention. Give him the title shot next. I know Oliveira's a big star and he's amazing too, but give Beneil a shot. Come on. So that's just what I think. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for listening or watching, and it's been a lot of fun doing this, so maybe I'll keep doing it. Alright. See you next time. Oh, I mean, maybe.